Scaling past 10 rental properties. If you're an experienced real estate investor, you know that this can be extremely challenging. So I'm going to talk about that in today's video. My name is RJ Baxter. I'm an over 20-year veteran in the mortgage industry, and I specialize in helping real estate investors like you to scale up their investment property portfolios. So let's talk about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why is it a challenge to go over 10 properties? And the biggest reason is because under traditional financing guidelines, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, conventional loans, it is literally in the guidelines that you cannot finance more than 10 investment properties that have financing on them. So what I'm talking about is only properties that have a loan. So if you own any properties free and clear, those don't count towards the 10 property limit. So that's really important to know. But you and I both know as real estate investors that one of the powers of real estate investing is having leverage on your properties, because you realize a higher cash on cash return on the cash that you have invested in that property. So the other thing is also with leveraging properties is that then you can offset your rental income with the cost of the interest on that loan. So that helps you in tax purposes to not have as much taxable income on your property. So we want to leverage up our properties if we can. The other thing that's really challenging with traditional financing is what are called reserves. And if you have started to accumulate properties, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require reserves not only on the property that you're purchasing, but also on all the properties in your portfolio. So what are reserves? Basically, 1 month of reserves means 1 month of payments on that property. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and HOA if that applies. So if you own, let's say, 8 properties that all have financing on them, you're talking a lot of money that you have to show in reserve after closing. So these are assets that remain after closing on that new property that the lender is able to verify and validate that you have all those reserves on all those properties. One more thing that I wanted to mention on this 10 property limit is that if you're up to that 10 property limit, you can still buy a primary residence and you are not subject to these guidelines. So let's say you own 10 properties already, 10 investment properties, and you want to move your primary residence to a new location. Well, you can still qualify for that primary residence loan without the reserve requirements, without the 10 property limit, and qualify under conventional financing guidelines. So that's really good news. They don't restrict you on your primary residence. So let's talk about solutions. There's a couple ways to get around this to scale past 10 finance properties. So one of those is what are called portfolio loans. So portfolio loans are loans that traditional banks hold on their books. They're not going to be sold to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They're not underwritten according to those guidelines. And banks look at each particular transaction for the merits of that particular property. So that's one solution you can go to. Now, banks traditionally, very, very difficult to work with. They're going to make your life difficult when you're in that process. But that is something that you can look at, a portfolio loan with a traditional bank. Another way to do it is commercial financing. So, technically speaking, investment property is a commercial endeavor. Some commercial type financing can finance a residential property. And certainly if you scale past, if you scale into properties that are 5 units or more, under Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines, that is considered a commercial property. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you can only go to a 4-unit property. So commercial financing is another option. And then the third option I want to discuss is something that I specialize in. It's called a DSCR loan. DSCR stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. And what the lender does is they take the rents for that property, the projected rents, and they utilize those rents to offset the payment, and they calculate a ratio based on that. So let's say that you have a property where the mortgage payment plus taxes and insurance is going to be $3,000, and you're going to collect $3,000 in rent on that property. That's a 1% DSCR ratio, debt service coverage ratio. And what lenders do with this type of financing is they consider the debt service coverage ratio to qualify you for that property. Now, there's a couple advantages to this. First of all, they allow you to scale past 10 properties. A lot of these lenders have limits of maybe 20 or no limit for a lot of them. So you can go well beyond 10 properties with this type of financing. The next thing is it makes your life a lot easier as far as documenting income. You don't have to document your personal income. You don't have to document your income on all the other properties. They just look at that particular investment property kind of like a little business, and they look at the merits of that particular property. And then the third thing is reserves. A lot of the DSCR lenders, they don't have the same reserve requirements as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So you're not going to have to gather a bunch of paperwork and other assets or have a bunch of other money in your other investment accounts in order to qualify for this type of loan. So a DSCR loan is a great door opener for real estate investors like you that want to continue to scale, and you want to keep leverage on your properties for all those reasons we discussed before. So if you have questions about a DSCR scenario, or you want to talk about how you might be able to benefit from this program moving forward to build your portfolio, just give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you about this, and we can run the numbers on your particular project that you're working on or for future investment aspirations. Once again, my name is RJ Baxter. Appreciate you guys watching today. Have a great day.